Sir, if you would, please raise your right hand and take an oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give to the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, if you would, please have a seat and state and spell your name for the record, and just speak towards the microphone both now and when you're giving your answers, please.
Chris Melton, CHRISMELTON.
And Mr. Melton, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Loganville.
All right.
South Walton County and Covington address, but I went to Loganville High School and School District.
Okay. And did you graduate from Loganville High School?
Yes, sir.
What year was it that you graduated from Loganville High School?
1996.
After you graduated from Loganville High School, did you go to college anywhere?
Yes, sir. Georgia College in Milledgeville.
Okay. Back when you were in high school, did you play any sports?
Yes, sir. Football, track, a year of golf. I was pretty busy with sports and involved with the school.
Once you got to Georgia College, where is Georgia College?
It's in Milledgeville, Georgia.
All right. When you got there, did you try to get connected with anything that was sports related?
Yes, sir. Once I was there, I wasn't on any type of sporting team, and I kind of missed the interaction. I missed being involved with the school, and I actually had a friend that I had made along the way that had come and introduced me to the cheerleading squad, and I thought that was interesting, so that's where it started there. Yes, sir.
Had you done any cheerleading before that or anything?
No, sir.
All right. Did you take to it pretty well?
I did.
Okay.
I was pretty athletic, and with the coaching and so forth and the support, it came pretty easy. Yes, sir.
Did you end up finishing your degree at Georgia College or leaving before you finished?
I left before I finished.
Okay. And so I want to go to your time while you were actually there at Georgia College. Did you ever meet a young lady by the name of Tara Baker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How'd you meet Tara?
I met Tara through actually one of the cheerleaders I have become friends with, Phil Peavy, and his sister was Ashley Peavy, and that was one of Tara's closest friend, if not best friend, and that was how we had the introduction.
And Ashley Peavy, does she have a different name now? Is she married?
Yes, I believe it's Ashley Hall.
Okay. And if you pardon me for just a minute, I'm going to pour myself a glass of water. Would you like a glass of water?
Yes, sir, please.
So Ashley Peavy, who is Ashley Hall, now introduced the two of y'all. When you left Georgia College, where did you go?
Once I left Georgia College, I moved back home with my parents.
So when you and Tara met at Georgia College, did y'all ever go on any dates or anything?
Yes, actually the first date we had was her sorority, AD Pi sorority, formal. And she did not have a date, and I was approached, would I be interested in being her companion for the evening, and I was all for it. Yes, sir. And
Okay.
That was our first date.
At the time, was Tara someone you were interested in romantically?
Before that, I would say no, sir.
Okay.
We had introductions, and I thought she was gorgeous, but I wasn't pursuing. No, sir.
Okay. And so did your relationship become more serious after you left Georgia College?
Yes, sir. We the night of the formal, we kind of had a spark, and while I was at the school, we crossed paths and so forth, but in social events and so forth, but our relationship took off after I had left, and she had moved back to her parents, and we got reconnected, and that's when it really became an exclusive relationship.
And you said when when she went back to her parents, do you know where her parents were living?
Her parents lived in Lovejoy.
Okay. And do you know what she was doing when she went back home?
She went back home. She started working at a law firm, a real estate law firm.
In Lovejoy?
I believe it was.
Okay.
They're in the vicinity.
While she was at Georgia College, do you know what kind of student Tara was?
She was an incredible student.
Okay.
Sir.
How long, if you know, did it take her to graduate from Georgia College?
I believe it was early. I believe she was a year early on her graduation.
Okay. And do you know how many degrees she graduated with?
I believe 2.
All right. How did that compare to you as a student?
She outperformed me, by all means, in most, I would say.
And I'm sorry, I cut you off. You said "and most." Is
I
that
would say
right?
in most, yes, sir.
Okay. When you got home, and college didn't work out for you or wasn't for you, what were you trying to do with your life, or what did you decide to get into?
Well, I was introduced to a plumbing ad in a newspaper by my mother the first day that I made it home. I came down the stairs, and as I turned the corner, she's sitting at the dining room table with the newspaper open and had already highlighted a plumbing job that was advertised, and she said, you're getting to work.
Yeah. So you weren't just going to get to hang out and watch TV, I guess. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that something you began to pursue kind of more seriously than just passing the time and making a little bit of money?
Yes, once I got involved, it actually became interesting. It seemed like a different side of my brain was activated. It was actually fairly easy to me. I'm not downplaying what the tasks are, but it's something I connected with very quickly. My father's side, he was a very good engineer, fabricator, pipe fitter. He wasn't necessarily a plumber, but he could build and take down and reconstruct about anything you could think of.
Okay. And were you and your dad pretty close?
Oh, very tight.
Okay. Is he still with us?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. And when did he pass away?
May 26th of 2024.
And so I want to get back to you and Tara's relationship as you're living with your parents and she is back home with her folks in Lovejoy. Around what year is this?
98.
Okay. Did you text a lot of people back in 1998?
I don't think I could text in 1998.
All right. So how is it that you and Tara were able to reconnect after she gets home and you're home?
While I was still at Georgia College, we had started having affections for each other. We weren't in a relationship, but each time that we crossed paths, our eyes would lock and we'd smile and spend some extended period of time together. And during that time, before she left, before I had left, she had found me on campus and made sure that I had her information back to Lovejoy where her parents were, her phone number, her address, and she had written it on an index card. And once she handed that to me, I folded it up, put it in my wallet, and made sure I never lost it.
Okay. And so how far away from each other were y'all living during that time period?
Quite a distance.
Okay.
I would say.
As best you can recall, do you remember how long it took to drive from your parents' house to her parents' house, roughly?
Hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes.
Okay. How did the relationship progress? Was it something that started quickly or slowly, or how did that happen?
Well, it progressed with the first phone call. I reached out, and our first conversation, it was like we had been talking the whole time. And I recall spending 2+ hours with her on the phone, and it just came naturally. And I recall her just being, so funny, so smart. She was intriguing. She just bragged about her family, her siblings, her parents, what they did, and the conversation would just naturally roll out, and that made me want to continue to speaking with her and further on. And then we spoke day after day after day, and then I was invited out to her home for our first visit and then pretty much our first date.
Okay. After your first visit and first date, how often would y'all get to see each other in person?
On the weekends, mostly. She was working, I was working, and we would see each other like Friday night or like a Saturday night, what was available, working with our schedules. Never spent the night. It was just always a day visit, a night to the evening, and then either, I would have to leave, and then we would find things to do, locally or at her parents' house. We'd watch movies or spend some time with the family or whatnot. But that's how it slowly progressed there.
Okay. As you continued that relationship, did you learn anything about Tara's plans for the future?
Yes, she had admirations to go to law school, and at first I remember she wanted to be a Supreme Court justice at one point, if I'm not mistaken. And then she got into, when she was working at the real estate law firm, that sparked her interest. She started getting more involved in that, and I think she liked the, as she would say, happy law, and that kind of fit her and suited her personality better.
Okay. And so did she have plans to go to law school?
Yes, sir.
Is there anywhere in particular that she wanted to go to law school?
UGA.
All right. And is that something she was able to accomplish as far as being able to attend UGA Law School?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you recall when it is that well, let me ask it this way. Did Tara end up moving out of her parents' house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Where did she move to?
Her first apartment was Timothy Woods.
Okay. Timothy Woods, where is that? What city?
That is in Athens.
All right. And when, if you recall, did she move to Timothy Woods?
'99, I would say, around that time. 99.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area.
So when she first moved to Athens, did she move here to start law school or to start something else?
When she moved to Athens, she had a job at another law firm. Excuse me.
Was that law firm in Athens?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you remember how long roughly she worked there until she started law school?
Yes, sir. I would close to a year,
okay,
I believe.
And so when is it that Tara started law school?
2000.
All right. And I want to back up and talk about what you were doing in this time frame. We talked about you had kind of found a home in plumbing. It was something that suited you and that you learned pretty quickly. Is that something that you were continuing to pursue?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so were you working for a company or how were you working as a plumber during that time period?
Okay. When I began, I worked for a company named Car Plumbing, and they had great ownership, great superintendents, great instruction, and that made things easier. And once I was there and I was exposed to the environment and blueprints and the procedures, it sparked I was a hands-on person. I liked putting things together. And so that helped me in actually pursuing plumbing in itself. I could see the potential. The owners of the business were very well off. They were very successful. So I saw a future in that, and that was a goal at that point. I could see maybe this is something I need to stick with.
Did you ever move out of your parents' home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when you did, where did you move to?
I moved to Jamestown North in Athens.
Okay. Do you recall where in Athens those apartments are, or what type of residence was it?
They're more or less like townhomes, 2 stories that are close proximity attached, and South Millage Avenue is where they're located.
Okay. And when is it that you moved to Athens?
I moved to Athens in 2000.
All right. So at this point, how long had you and Tara been dating as a couple?
I would say over 2.5 years.
Okay.
At that point, around 2 years.
And so you moved to Athens when in 2000? I'm sorry.
I believe it was in April of 2000.
Okay. And so you're in Athens also. This is the first time that y'all are living back in the same town since y'all were in Georgia College. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's the first time you're living in the same town since your relationship has been serious over the last 2 years or so. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But y'all are living in 2 separate places, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. How often would you get to see Tara once you moved to Athens?
Definitely, I was happy because we did get to see each other more often. I could see her pretty frequently on a daily, if not a daily basis, multiple times a week, upwards of 5 days a week.
Okay. And so we talked about the Timothy Woods address that Tara lived in from 99 to 2000. Did she move somewhere else in Athens around the time she was starting in law school?
Yes, sir. I believe it was Deer Park.
Okay.
Referred to.
Who did she live at Deer Park with?
She lived with, at the time, Ashley Peavy and Valerie Lang. I believe it was Valerie's last name.
All right. And Ashley Peavy, you mentioned her before from Georgia College. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. How is it that Tara knew Valerie?
I believe she met her through Ashley. I think it was Ashley's old roommate, but previous roommate before.
All right. And so were Ashley and Valerie seeing anyone romantically?
Yes. Ashley was in a relationship with Chris Hall, to whom I believe who she's married to now, and they met in Milledgeville also, from my understanding. Valerie, I wasn't as familiar with their relationship, and I'm sorry, but I can't quite remember his name.
Well, that's okay. So, would you ever go over to Tara's residence once you moved to Deer Park?
Yes.
Okay. And would Tara come over to your residence at Jamestown?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Did y'all ever spend the night with each other?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so would she spend the night more often at your residence than you would at hers?
The majority of the time would be my place.
Okay. Were there times, though, when you would stay over at her place sometimes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were there times when you would go and hang out there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have a key to that residence at Deer Park?
No, sir.
All right. Are you aware of any of the boyfriends having keys to that residence at Deer Park?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what that law school experience was like for Tara. Once she started in law school, would that have been, August of 2000? Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
Okay. What was that experience like for her as far as academically and time constraints and things like that?
It was a new challenge. Her academics previously, I would say, came pretty easily to her. And then when she started law school, it was more consuming and definitely much more of a challenge.
Okay. Is that something that kind of compressed y'all's free time?
Yes.
I can rephrase
All right,
the question,
I'll
Judge.
sustain it, allow you to rephrase if you choose to.
How did law school affect Tara's free time?
It definitely consumed more of her free time.
Okay.
She had to spend more time there.
And so at this point, you're in Athens. Where are most of your plumbing jobs happening, though?
Walton County, Gwinnett County, some in Rockdale County, and the northern side of Forsyth, and sometimes even in Hall.
Okay. So all west of Athens.
Correct.
Okay. Who were you working for back then?
Well, I started with McCart Plumbing, and I worked for them for 2.5 years, I would say. And there was a point that after I really had the hang of it, and I really knew I had a grasp, and I had been a crew leader at this point for multiple years, I decided that I think I was going to pursue a stepping stone, which at that point would be referred to as subcontracting. And so at that point, you would purchase your own vehicle, your tools, your equipment, you would have your own insurance, and you would have your own employment as far as employees that would work for you.
Okay. And so you're getting ready to try to take this next step that you just described. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Well, I want to back up a little bit and talk about that and kind of the broader context of you and Tara's relationship. You know, obviously, you know, Tara's a very high-achieving person. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir. She is a large motivation for me to so early want to pursue the next step.
And you kind of, you mentioned it right there. You called it a motivation. Were you ever intimidated or discouraged or upset by Tara's achievements?
Never.
Okay. How did you take it?
I took it as a good thing. I took, I was supportive. I knew from the beginning her ambitions, and I always try to be supportive in any way I could. And she did the same for me.
And so, we talked about when you were at McCart, you mentioned going out on your own subcontract and you got to get all this stuff for yourself. At McCart, were you using your own money to buy gas to go to jobs and fuel, or gas to go to jobs or other supplies or anything like that? Or was that part of what was given to you?
No, sir. Once you are a crew leader, you're issued a vehicle, gas card, all your equipment, tools, fittings, and so forth. Whatever's needed to complete the job, they supply.
Okay. So who was paying for gas when you were working for McCart and living in Athens and having to travel for jobs?
When I was working for McCart, they paid for everything.
Was that the case for you as a subcontractor trying to go out on your own, or was it different?
It was different. Yes, sir. And I was responsible fully for everything.
All right. And so at this time, where were your folks living?
They were living, it's a Covington address, but it's in Walton County.
Okay. And so that address, was that closer or further from most of your jobs than where you were living in Athens?
Much closer.
Okay. Based on that, did you make any decisions about how you were going to spend your time between Athens and other places?
Yes, sir. I had just started working for myself maybe a week prior, okay? And
I'm going to stop you just a week prior to what?
To Tara's death.
Okay.
Okay. I was within within a week I had started. What I had to make a decision was to stay at my parents' due to the cost and the additional expense of the travel. I still wanted to keep my place in Athens. I had no intentions of moving from there, but I did like having my place something close to Tara, so when we did have free time, we did have a place to meet, go. I could have my own space. But during the work days, I would stay at my parents'. That way I had a truck, a trailer for hauling equipment. They had the space, and they were roughly in one direction 50 plus miles closer to most of my jobs.
Okay. And so at this point, we're talking about January, within a couple weeks of Tara's murder, do you still have your apartment at Jamestown?
That's correct.
Okay. How was the state of you and Tara's relationship, in those months leading up to her murder?
Everything was wonderful. It was difficult for us not to see each other as much as we would have liked, but we were both in the understanding that we were pursuing future paths for us to have a better future together. And so she was supportive of my pursuits, and I would be supportive of her pursuits, but our relationship was strong.
And you mentioned in order for us to have a future together, is that something that y'all talked about, a future together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to talk with you about some difficult things, obviously. I want to talk with you in particular about the morning of, well, let's start with Thursday, January 18th, going into Friday, January 19th, okay? Did you talk, and I don't want you to tell me what people said to you, okay, but did you talk to Tara on Thursday, January 18th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what, if anything, was significant about that weekend that was coming up in a couple of days, sir?
It was her birthday.
Okay. And what was Tara's birthday?
It was the 20th.
All right.
And that would have been the Saturday coming up.
Did y'all have any plans for the weekend based on the fact that it was her birthday?
Yes, sir. She had, there was, I believe, law school students and even co-workers from the law firm, if I'm not mistaken, and we were going to go out and have a kind of a mixed, mingled drink kind of social event in celebration of her birthday.
All right. Is that something you were excited about?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you know how Tara felt about it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How did she feel about it?
She was excited.
All right. And then, I want to talk about January 19th of 2001. When you woke up that morning, about what time did you get up, and what was your plan for the day?
Okay. I would have woken up somewhere between 6:30 to get ready. Josh McCurdy, who worked for me at the time, he would arrive at my house around 7:15, and then we would go from my house to Nash Plumbing. Nash Plumbing offered the ability to use my subcontracting abilities. Some companies would only work in-house employees, but Nash Plumbing would allow us to work there. So around 7:15, we went to Nash Plumbing to load up for a task. They would issue me that task that morning. We had just previously completed one. Within just a few days prior to that, we had started and finished it the day before. So at 7:30 to 7:45-ish, we arrived at Nash Plumbing to load up the materials for the next task. And then
I want to stop you for just a second there. You're saying you get assigned a task at Nash Plumbing. What do you mean by a task?
Okay. Well, Nash Plumbing has the licensing, the contract agreements with developers and contractors. They work the figure sides of things, the overall cost.
The bidding?
The bidding.
Okay.
Yes, sir. As a subcontractor, you are paid per fixture. And so there's a per fixture cost being such as something like and I did rough ends before the sheetrock went in the houses and so forth. The houses are studded when the roofing's put on. And so I would get the assignment from them. They would give me the address, the person, the superintendent to whom I would meet, and then I would go to the job sites and I would lay out with them the blueprinting and so forth and what is intended to be installed. And they would supply me, in return, Nash would give me the fittings, the pipes, the glue, the adhesives, the fasteners, whatever's needed to be installed. But I've supplied the trucks, the vehicles, the fuel, and the help and insurance. That's the agreement at that point.
Okay. And so I just want to back up. You mentioned an individual by the name of Josh McCurdy. Is that right?
Correct.
And you testified that that's someone who is working for you. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. How did you know Josh?
I met Josh when he came on to work for McCart Plumbing. And he actually ended up on my crew that I was in charge of. And when I decided to leave, he and I had a good relationship. We got along very well. I saw potential in him that he could gain in his abilities, and he was always reliable and so forth. I asked him, would you be interested to come work for me as I step out into this next leg? And he agreed, and that's where that started.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you your full date of birth, but can you tell me what year you were born in?
78.
Okay. Sorry, I meant to do that at the front end there. And so at this point, let's go back to January 19th of 2001, now that we have a little explanation of how the business model worked between you and Nash Plumbing. So on January 19th of 2001, you said you went to Nash Plumbing to get your task. After you get your task, when you're working for Nash Plumbing, is there anything else you have to do while you're there?
Once they tell me the amount of fixtures, the size of the house, I have to load up the appropriate fittings, pipe, the linear footage that's needed to be installed. And then we load that onto my vehicle, and then we take it to the job site, and we do the installation.
Typically, on average, how long does that process of determining what you need and then loading it all up, how long does that take?
Take anywhere from 45 minutes to even sometimes upwards of an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half.
Is that dependent on the size of the assignment that you've received or the task that you've received?
That's correct. Along with, there's other contractors there that hold, we'll say, the same subcontracting title, and they're also loading up. So sometimes you have to kind of move around and wait your turn to speak with the owner and so forth. But we're all kind of, if I'm there without other people, it can go much faster. But if it's a busy time like the subway or whatnot, so to speak, in the office, it can take you a little bit longer. And depending on the size of the house, yes, a small house takes less time than a large house to pull your materials.
After you did finish getting loaded up, where did you go next? And I mean, I know it's been 25 years, but as best you recall, where did you go next?
I went to Wachovia in Loganville.
Okay. Is the Wachovia in Loganville, approximately how far away that is from Athens?
From Athens, 50 to 60 miles.
Okay. And about what time were you at Wachovia?
Right after I believe at the time opened, is around 9 o'clock, 9 to 9:10, somewhere in that area when I arrived.
And so when you got to Wachovia, did you go inside the bank?
I did.
All right. And what were you doing inside the bank that day?
At that point, I believe I was depositing a check and I was withdrawing money.
Okay. After you got done at the bank, did y'all leave?
That's correct.
All right. And where did you go?
From Wachovia, I believe it went to Truck Customs in Loganville, just to talk to Bill, the owner. I had planned to have a ladder rack We had talked about this and had something ordered in. That was a ladder rack that was going to be installed onto my work truck to help out, and that would be the next place, to my recollection.
And I mean, Truck Customs feel a little silly asking this question. Seems like it's right in the name, but what type of business was Truck Customs?
Okay. They would do modifications, all types of modifications, from tires to lift kits to toolboxes to ladder racks, anything that would help with, work or appearance on vehicles.
So the first time you got to Truck Customs, you made reference to a pipe rack a few minutes, or probably not even a minute ago in your testimony. Was that ready to be installed when you got there the first time?
No, sir, it wasn't ready.
Okay. And so what did you do at that point?
Josh and I went to a house in Grayson. We had previously completed the installation. So with that being said, we had to fill the piping with water, pressurized on the water piping side, and then you fill the drain piping with water to have it ready for inspection for the county to come in. And it was my duty to go back and do an inspection to make sure that we didn't have any leaks or any corrections that had to be made.
All right. Were y'all able to complete that task?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was there anything else that y'all were supposed to be doing that day?
Yes, sir. We had to go to Forsyth, the house I had loaded up the materials for earlier that morning.
From your task or assignment from that morning from Nash?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And where was that house?
That would have been, I believe, in the northern part of Forsyth County.
Okay.
In Forsyth County.
Did you go to that residence?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what phase of construction was this home in?
It was in the new development phase, so the foundation has been installed, the framing has been completed, excluding the roof. They had not put the decking on the roof, and they were in the middle of trying to get the decking put on. And it was, at that point, it was literally like raining that day, and rain was coming down inside of the house. And so I had the opportunity to meet with Mike, who was the superintendent. I'm not really sure who the contracted company was it was doing, but I met with Mike, who was in charge of doing the layouts. And we got the blueprints, and we completed the layout for the house, and I unloaded the plastic fittings and piping because it wasn't really at risk of being stolen, not like copper piping. So I held on to that where I didn't have to haul that back and forth. And so we left that on the site.
Well, and you mentioned risk of being stolen and copper piping. The stuff that you left at the site, is that stuff you can turn in for money at a salvage yard?
Not really, no, sir.
Okay. And so given the rain that was coming down, were you able to complete what your task was supposed to be that day?
No, sir.
All right. And why is that?
With the water coming into the house, my next step would have been pulling electrical cords and electrical equipment to drill the appropriate holes in their locations. So once that happens, it's too high of a risk of electric shock. So we just didn't go any further with that.
Okay. Where did y'all go from Forsyth County as best you can recall?
I believe we went back to Truck Customs. I just swung back in just to talk to Bill to get some measurements to make sure he could construct the pipe rack at that point, to the right lengths and distances and pinpoints, and it still wasn't ready at that point.
All right. And so where did y'all go next?
I recall going from there back to Nash Plumbing and speaking with Jody Nash, who is the owner's wife. This would have been a husband-wife operation, but they were successful. They had lots of work that was coming through, but Jody is the one that was in charge of getting us to our appropriate assignments and paperwork. And I went back there just to swing in to let her know, this is where we're at with the Forsyth house, and I will be coming back, Monday, to get that house started.
And where'd y'all go after that?
We went back to my house. I say my house, went back to my parents' house. Josh's vehicle was there. At this point, he could go back home. He lived in close proximity. Go back home. We're on some downtime for the moment, because at that point, when I went to Truck Customs, we had established a time that I could return and it would be ready for the installation. I could leave the truck with him for an hour or so and he would complete the installation, and that's why we went back to my house for a short period of time.
Okay. And about what time of day would this have been at this point?
Okay, arriving back at my house, that would have been maybe around 2 o'clock or so, 2 to 2:30ish. I know that we had agreed to meet back up at my house around 3:30 to 3:45 to make the trip back to Truck Customs in Loganville, to drop off the vehicle. He followed me in his personal vehicle, where we could leave the vehicle and then just kind of run around and do some personal things and errands and so forth while that installation was being completed.
And what time, if you recall, were you supposed to be back at Truck Customs, or could be back at Truck Customs to pick up your truck?
That once it would take about an hour or so. Once I would drop it off at 4, it was going to take an hour and 15 minutes, he said, to have the installation complete.
Okay. Did y'all ever go back to Truck Customs to get that installation done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And about what time was that?
We arrived approximately around 4 p.m.
All right. While you were at Truck Customs, well, let me go back and ask this question. At that time period, what types of communication devices or ways that people could contact you did you have?
I had a pager, a cell phone / Nextel, if anybody recalls what Nextels were. So that's the Nextel aspect of it was mainly used like through the contractors and glorified walkie-talkie. But I had a cell phone and a pager.
Yeah. Well, and it just for folks that might not remember, and I think I remember, but can you explain, what was it about those Nextel phones you said was a glorified walkie-talkie? What do you mean by that?
All right, Nextels could only communicate with another Nextel. And so you didn't have a phone number, so to speak, but you had a pre-issued number that you could type in, and then basically you would push the button and speak, and then that would directly alert the other person on the other line, and they could hear you, and then you would let off the button, and then the communication could continue back and forth.
So it wasn't necessarily like a ring and answer. It was almost like a system where you come on like a public address system.
More or less.
Okay. And so did you receive any kind of alert from anyone while you were at Truck Customs?
Yes, I received a page.
And that page, do you know who that came from?
It came from Miss Baker.
Okay. And when you say Miss Baker, are you talking about Tara or somebody else in her family?
Tara's mother, Virginia Baker.
All right. And if you recall, what was the initial page that you received?
If I can recall, I believe it was her home phone number.
Okay.
That came through.
And did you reach out to Miss Baker?
Yes, sir. I reached out. I asked if I could use Bill's phone number, Bill's phone at Truck Customs, and he allowed me to use his phone for a moment to return the call.
Okay. And I don't want you to get into the specifics of words that someone said to you, but what did you learn when you called Miss Virginia Baker?
She had told me that there was a fire at Tara's residence. Her car is the only one in the driveway, and there was a body discovered in the fire.
Okay. In that moment, what was your reaction to hearing that information?
Devastated.
What, if anything, did you do right after that as far as where you were going to go or what your plan was or what you were trying to do?
I recall once I got off the phone with Miss Baker, I kind of just was in shock, and I had to take a moment, and I recall, I believe, somehow either I ended up taking a knee or two knees or sat down on the floor to have a moment to recover in the showroom. And then once I came around, the attention was on me, and I remember Bill, I believe, reaching out and asking if I was okay, and Josh was like, "Are you okay?" And I looked at Josh, and I said, "You need to get me to Athens right now." And he agreed.
Okay. So what did y'all do from there?
Josh took me in his vehicle. They had already taken my vehicle back for the installation, so we jumped in his vehicle, and he drove. And as we're en route to Athens, I'm trying to reach out I'm calling 411, trying to find Ashley and Valerie's parents from their last name. And kind of at that time, I believe I knew Ashley was from Milledgeville area, and I can't recall now at the moment where Valerie was from, but I did at the time. And I had also, when I was on the phone with Miss Baker, she had stated there was a body in the fire, and they did not know where Valerie or Ashley were at that moment. They had not made contact.
Was that part of the reason that you were trying to get a hold of them or their families?
Yes, I was.
I'm going to sustain that, ask you not to lead the witness.
Thank you, Judge. Why were you trying to get a hold of Ashley and Valerie?
I was trying to figure out where everybody was. With the information given to me, I already felt at heart that I knew who this was just based on whose car was in the driveway, but I was uncertain, and I wanted to reach out to her parents and anybody I could get a hold of to see if they had been in communication, and also to inform them of what had happened.
Did y'all eventually arrive in Athens?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you arrived in Athens, where did you go?
What I can recall is when I was on the phone with Ms. Baker, I think Athens Clark County had reached out to her, and she informed me of that. So I reached out to Athens Clark County and called, and I went straight to the police department, is where I was told to go from the police department. They said, come straight here. And so that's where we were.
And I think that it's kind of indicated in your answer, but let me just ask it to clarify. When you say that you reached out to Athens Clark County, is there a particular department or agency or part of Athens Clark County that you reached out to?
Not that I recall. I think it may have just been like the main number at that time.
The main number for what?
For the police department.
Okay. All right. And so you went to the police department. At any point, did you leave the police department to go somewhere else?
Yes. Once I was there, they had asked me a few questions in a room, and then they asked me if I would identify her body.
What went through your mind when they asked you that?
I really did not want to agree at first because I was aware that there was a fire, and I didn't want to see any of them. You know, no matter who it was, I didn't want to see what devastation I may have caused, and it was difficult just to comprehend. And then the detective, He asked if I would identify the body because he did not want the parents to have to identify the body, and could save them some grief, so I agreed.
Where did you go at that point?
They took me to Deer Park, and they took me to the scene.
When you got to the scene, what did you do next?
Once we got out of the car, the detectives wanted to walk me into the house to identify her, and we were stopped at the door, I believe by a fireman, if I can recollect, and he said he cannot come in here. And at that point, they came up with a different plan. They walked me back to the curb and said, we're going to do this a different way. And they took a picture, and I got to identify her through a digital camera image from the camera itself.
I want to take you back to July of 2000. Were y'all, when I say y'all, I mean you and Tara, were y'all celebrating anything special as far as a milestone or anything in that time period?
Yes, sir. Along the way of starting to date back when she was at her parents', when we kind of considered us exclusive, we both would agree upon that first date, that when I came to visit would be our first, date line, timeline. And so it was July 4th weekend, and so July 4th we considered that our anniversary. Yes, sir.
So July 4th of 2000, based on what you were saying, 1998, is that what you just said?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so what anniversary would that have been for y'all?
We're looking at, what's that, 99, 2000, close to, I would say 3 years.
Well, so from July of 1998 to July of 2000.
To 2000, okay.
Yeah.
99, 2000, 2 years. I
Okay.
apologize.
Did you get Tara anything special for that anniversary?
Yes, sir. I got her diamond-studded earrings.
How did she feel about that gift that you had gotten her?
Oh, she adored them. She realized, and we had discussions that, this is representation of where we've been and where we're headed. And once she put them in, to my knowledge, unless she was to clean them or whatnot, she always wore them. Every time I saw her, she always had these diamond earrings in.
On January 19th of 2001, did you talk with police about those diamond earrings at all?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When I was shown the pictures of Tara, I was in utter shock, just in the moment. But as I got to gaze upon these pictures, it did not look like Tara. And I couldn't, for certain, even identify her. And it just came to mind, if this is Tara, she's wearing the diamond earrings. And so they returned into the house. And then he returned back to me. And when he opened his hand, he had one of the diamond-studded earrings. And that's when I knew for certain it was Tara.
So you see the diamond earrings, and do you communicate your certainty to them that that is Tara?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, about how many police officers are out there at the scene, as best you can recall?
I know just regular uniformed police officers, I would guesstimate maybe 3 or 4. But surrounding me at that very moment, if you include the person that's holding the camera, I'm not sure if these are detectives, there's approximately 4.
I'm sorry. I thought something was trying to get communicated to the bailiffs, Judge. So I just
Does anybody in the jury need something? Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, you may continue, Mr. Yelman-Chile.
thank you, Your Honor. So about 4 uniformed, patrol 3 or 4, and then you're surrounded by some detectives. Is that what you just said?
That's correct.
Okay. What type of feeling were you getting in your perception of the way that those detectives were interacting with you and talking to you?
Jason, Your Honor, speculation.
Mr. Yelman-Chile, any response?
Yes, Judge. I don't think that it's speculation to ask Mr. Melton what his perception of certain people's actions towards him were.
Overruled. You may continue.
Mr. Melton, I'll ask you the question again, sir. What was your perception of the way that those detectives surrounding you were treating you and speaking with you? And I'm not asking you to say what people said, but what was your perception of the situation?
I felt as if they were gazing upon me, and I could feel the intensity from them staring at me as they were angry. And I would say,
Did you?
felt anger.
That's all right. And if you could, I know it's difficult. All witnesses do it. Make sure that you speak clearly and loudly towards the microphone so that our court reporter is able to make a record, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you ever leave the scene that evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We went. Yes, I was taken back to the police department at that point. Yes, sir.
Okay. That night when you were at the police department, did you speak with law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you do so voluntarily?
Yes, sir. As there was a point in time that I was taken back to the police department, my parents, I had called to inform them what had happened. They were they had difficulty of finding the location. They knew where I had an apartment at Jamestown North, so the police gave me, they took me in an unmarked vehicle back to my place where I could meet with my parents, and then my parents, we went back to the police station.
Okay. And is that the point at which you talked with police after your parents took you back to the police station?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have a lawyer with you?
No, sir.
Did you ask for a lawyer?
No, sir.
Okay. When you spoke with the police that evening, did you tell them, or did you answer all their questions truthfully?
Yes, sir.
Okay. After that interview concluded, where did you go?
We were put up in a hotel, Holiday Inn, near the downtown area, and that was provided by the police department. They said you could, when it was all concluded, it was late, and it had been an emotional day, and we were all exhausted. And we were put up in a hotel room, my parents, my mother, my father, myself.
Well, and let me ask you this and back up a little bit. When you interviewed with the police on January 19th, did you have any kind of things on your hands from working?
Yes, sir, which I usually did, like primer, if you're in glue, solvents, they can stain your hands. Primer is purple in color. Some may even say kind of purplish blue, and whatever it touches, it stains. Piping cement, it kind of adheres to you pretty well, and I had things such as, I believe, that on my hands. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to go forward now to January 20th of 2001. This is the day after. At that point, did you ever return to those Jamestown apartments that you had an apartment at?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My parents had taken me back to the apartment to grab a few things.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Melton. How do you typically deal with very stressful situations with difficult emotions involved?
Traditionally, I bottle it up inside, and I bottle it up inside and try to hold a secure presence for myself and the people around me. And yes, sir.
What happened on that day, on January 20th, the day after Tara's murder, once you got inside of your apartment, townhome, however you want to describe it?
Once we entered my apartment, my parents were with me, and I started having an extreme emotional moment. And they recognized that it was hard for me to hold it in any longer. And I do recall my parents coming to me and wrapping their arms around me and trying to get me to calm down. And in that moment, I actually felt claustrophobic. I felt restraint. And I remember pulling away from my father to get away from him. And then I spun around, and there was a wall in front of me at the bottom of the stairwell, and it was the sheetrock wall. And I just remembered unleashing my emotions on the sheetrock wall. And I punched it, I don't know, maybe 30 times, maybe more.
Did that do any damage to that wall?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did it do any damage to your hands?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. What kind of damage did it do to your hands?
It scratched my hands up. It swole my hands up. Fortunately, I didn't break anything, and I guess fortunately I didn't find a stud in the wall. It was mainly sheetrock, and as I went through the sheetrock, I was finding, I believe it was the concrete siding on the outside. It was an exterior wall, so I was punching through the sheetrock and hitting the concrete siding to the outside, and I was knocking, to my knowledge, I was knocking the siding loose also.
Okay. The next day, that's January 20th of 2001, after you stopped at your townhouse, apartment, whatever you want to call it, at Jamestown, where did you and your parents go after that?
We went back to my parents' house.
Okay. So on the 21st, did you speak with law enforcement again on that day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is it that you were going back to speak with them about and do?
I believe to answer further questions. At that point, they were asking for further information, to my knowledge.
Okay.
And once I got there, we had discussed blood work and other blood work and other things that may be needed, like hair samples and such.
Okay. Was this something that you were having to do because of a court order or search warrant or something?
No, sir.
Okay. Is it something that you did voluntarily?
Absolutely.
Okay. At this point, we're 2 days away from January 19th. You've already testified about how you felt the police were looking at you. Did you take a lawyer with you to that meeting on the 21st?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you honest with police about the questions they were asking you to the best of your recollection?
Absolutely.
Stand, I'll ask you to rephrase if you choose to rephrase.
Okay. Did the police ask you questions?
Yes, sir.
Did you answer them honestly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On that day, January 21st, were there any photographs taken?
They had taken pictures of my hands. I had to remove my shirt. They had taken pictures of my body, I believe, which included from my head to my waist, and I can't remember if I had to remove my pants, but I do remember from my waist up having to strip down to have photos taken also.
Okay. After you finished having photographs taken, did you end up having blood drawn?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember, and if you don't, that's fine also, but was it the same or a different detective who talked to you on the 19th and the 21st?
I believe it was the same.
Okay. And so after you finished that interaction with police officers, what did you do?
As far as, can you rephrase, can you ask me once again?
Yeah. So we've talked about you go and talk to the police, then you go and do a blood draw. What did you do after you got done with the blood draw?
We went back to my parents' house.
Okay. Obviously, there's an investigation going on during this time period. Did that investigation continue to your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How, during this time period, how are people who were in your life reacting to the investigation and to you?
I noticed distance.
Overruled. You may continue.
I'll ask the question again, Mr. Melton. How were people in your life or around your life reacting to the investigation being ongoing and reacting to you?
I could see that there was distance occurring. Like people would just it started fading away. Friends, and even, I hate to say, even family members that would just stop communication. And if it was discussed or brought up, or if I was in an area or a room that people knew of what had happened to Tara, I felt that I was being looked at as the person that would have caused this. And that's the perception I was feeling. That's feelings that I was getting.
You testified earlier about having a tendency to bottle up your emotions. How were you doing emotionally during that time period?
I'm struggling. I am struggling. Daily, I have to put on the best way I could describe as a facade to make it through the day. I understand that I have to make it through daily, but at night or whenever things stop, such as work or things that can keep me sidetracked, especially the nights. The nights were horrible. I would find myself on my knees, pounding the ground, the sand, whatever, just finding myself so mad at God that I couldn't understand. And I would wake up so many times for the longest time in fetal position where I just cried myself to exhaustion. But every day, each time I would be so angry and find myself in this position. As mad as I was and not understanding how God could allow the devil and his angels' house, I would feel warmth and thoughts in my head that weren't my own, telling me not to give up, not to give in. And it gave me the strength to get up each time and strap on my boots and carry on through the day. And this cycle continued for a long time until I just couldn't recall certain things, and it would fade. But through the days, I would just find a way to make it through and keep my mind occupied, and just dread of the next night to come. And it was so difficult. But I found a way. Jesus helped me get through this and carry forward. If that,
Mr. Melton.
yes, sir.
Overruled.
Mr. Melton, I'm going to ask you, sir, did law enforcement continue to reach out to you at certain times during the investigation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When they reached out to you, would they ask you for things or ask you questions, or what would they talk to you about?
Just different things. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to get my thoughts together at the moment.
Well, that's okay. Let me ask you this. At any point, did you refuse to speak with law enforcement or retain an attorney to speak with law enforcement?
No, sir.
Okay. What was your mindset as far as, why you were continuing to be cooperative with the investigation?
I always believed that the truth would set me free. I had nothing to hide.
Mr. Melton, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions for you right now.
Cross-examination, Mr. Cruz.